If you're a beginner or intermediate artist and you're spending hours and hours on fundamentals, drawing boxes and pages of perspective lines, and you're wondering if you're ever going to see that progress, you need to stop focusing on what you're learning and start focusing on how you're learning. Let me explain. The brain learns in a very, very specific way. And if we try to force feed it information, it's going to take a very, very long time for that information to stay in our brain. And even worse, it's going to take very quickly for that information to fall out. That's why you might feel like after you spent a month trying to study how to draw the face, and then a week later when you try to draw that face, you have to go back to ground one and like, okay, how do I draw the face in this perspective, in this position again? Because you might have been trying to mindlessly study art and not following a couple of very crucial tweaks that just instantly make the learning easier. And they're very, very simple and very easy to apply. The way that the brain learns is that it sees a piece of information or it hears a piece of information. And then that piece of information needs to be weighed, whether it's useful or not useful, because the brain takes in thousands of gigabytes of data every single day from our nose, our eyes, our ears, our sensors, in our skin, and needs to decide, is this going to be useful for later or is it not? And 99% of it gets thrown out as not useful. And then the small percentage of information that is useful gets sent into the storage, the long-term memory. We need to figure out how to make sure that when we're learning art, that it gets sent into that long-term memory. Because just because we say, hey, I really want to be able to learn this, does not mean that's enough for the brain to actually take that information and store it in our long-term memory. I'm sure you've experienced that when you went to school. Just because you said, okay, I really need to study for or memorize this test, doesn't mean that your brain just switched on and started helping you to memorize everything that you were reading. You had to work out specific type of techniques so that the brain was holding on to that information. There are two ways that the brain learns: by creating a container for the information so that it's able to hold it there, or by linking the new information to previous thoughts, to previous information. So how do we apply those two principles towards art? Many times when you're a beginner artist or even intermediate, you want to follow a very structured plan. Okay, I'm going to start here by drawing shapes, and then I'm going to go to taking those shapes to draw the body. And we've all fallen into this a little bit of having a cookie cutter structured plan, but the mind doesn't work like that. If it doesn't have a reason to remember that the shapes are drawn like this in this kind of perspective, it's not going to hold on to that information. So first, it's such a simple thing. First, do a drawing of a stick, of a human body, try to mannequinize it. And then when your brain sees, okay, wait a second, I don't actually know how to draw the box in this perspective. That is the simple thing that is the container that will hold the information. Now your brain is seeking out, how do I draw the box? And now when you go and study how to draw the box, your brain will actually hold on to it. And it's simple. It's such a simple shift in how we approach the learning, but the brain works in weird ways. And when you approach it from this way, that information will actually stick inside of your mind because you've created a placeholder. Now, the second way is actually linking the knowledge to old knowledge. You know, the saying that neurons that fire together, wire together, well, they enjoy that process. They like to fire together. So when we add another neuron, another piece of information, it gets another link and it enjoys that and it'll stick together much longer. So when you're drawing something, let's say you're learning to draw the face and you understand where the nose goes. If you can relate where the nose goes to where the eyes are placed on the face, your brain is now linking those two pieces of information. Whereas if you just try to memorize where do the eyes go on the face, no linking at all, it's going to struggle to put that piece of information into the long-term memory. And it's such a small and simple tweak on how we think and how we practice, and yet it has such a massive difference on the amount of information that we're actually able to retain in our minds. One of the biggest struggles for artists is losing motivation. Because art is such a vast subject, there's so much that we have to learn. And because we don't see progress, we lose that motivation. Because progress is one of the key ingredients towards motivation, if we're not seeing any steps forward, we lose the motivation, then we never continue drawing. And then 5 years, we look back and we're wondering like, why did I stop that? It is so enjoyable to be able to sit down and draw whatever I want to be able to draw. And we can stick on that path. We can gain that motivation, but you have to learn how your brain learns. That way, when you sit down, you put those hours in, they're not mindless practice hours. They're actually going towards making you into a better artist. And none of these things that I've talked about today are difficult to apply. It's all about creating the container, letting your brain ask the question first, or linking the new piece of knowledge towards existing knowledge. These two simple little tips, these little tricks instantly create they instantly tell your brain, hey, that is important information. I'm gonna section that off and put it into the long-term memory. And now when you've studied how to draw boxes, you can actually apply that. So when you need to mannequinize a figure, you can take the box knowledge and apply it over here. There are thousands of really amazing courses and teachers out there that tell us on how to learn, that teach us the system of how to learn art, but we're not focusing enough on how to do the learning, how to actually get that information to stick in our mind. If you spend 1,000 hours and that information that you were trying to learn just falls out of your brain, of course, we're not going to be motivated to actually continue on with that. So we need to develop an understanding and a system that actually keeps that information in the back of our mind. If you want a written out, structured plan for how to actually learn art so it sticks in your brain long term, I have a free PDF down below that you can download. If you guys enjoyed this video, I'll see you guys in the next one.